now. And I will pass it over to my colleague, Sean Elliott, who will introduce our wonderful panel.
I can't hear anything.
Can you all hear Sean?
No.
Okay. You know why? Because I muted myself. I'm sorry, everyone. Okay, yeah, so Sean is going to now introduce this panel. That was a test to see if you all were paying attention, and you passed.
All right, take two. Welcome, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Literacy Instruction for All Strategies for Secondary Multilingual Students, presented by Dr. Noelle Emilius, 10th grade English teacher at DCPS, and Dr. Nicole Ugel, ESL middle school manager at District of Columbia Public Schools. During this presentation, please just follow our breakout session participant norms that are currently displayed. You can use the chat to type your comments and questions for this presentation. We will be managing the chat. At the end of the presentation, we'll read aloud questions and the presenters will answer them. Please enjoy, and I will turn it over to our wonderful facilitators.
Hi, great. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Nikki Ugel, and my colleague and friend, Dr. Noelle Emilius, and I are honored to be here today. And we want to thank Aussie for honoring this work, particularly Ms. Dumond, Mr. Sanchez, and other colleagues at Aussie who are invited us to join today. Again, we are very excited to be here. So as Sean mentioned, Dr. Emilius teaches 10th grade ELA at Czech. And I just want to give a little bit of background about what Czech is. Columbia Heights Education Campus is a school that has numerous English learners enrolled at their campus. So our current data from yesterday indicates that right now Czech is educating 598 Ls, and that means that they're receiving services in English to become bilingual. Additionally, at Czech, there are 400 Ls who are fully exited and are either under monitoring status or not. And that means that they have passed enough exams and shown in their reading, writing, listening, and speaking that they are proficient and they are not receiving additional services for ESL. But that means if you look at this number, more than 1,000 Ls, children who are enrolled in DC public schools whose language is not English, are served by Czech. In my role, as Mr. Sean Elliott told you, I support schools serving their Ls. So just to dig a little bit deeper into English learners. So an English learner, as we said, Czech is serving more than 1,000, are students who speak a language other than English at home. And as of Wednesday, so we received the latest data from Aussie, DCPS and the charter world. So both the DC community of scholars, students, there are more than 12,000 Ls in our schools. And of those 12,000, more than 2,500 are Ls with disabilities, meaning that they're duly identified. Our colleagues at St. Coletta and our colleagues at River Terrace serve our students with the most severe cognitive disabilities, but otherwise, and those are a handful of children, but thousands are being served by us, our teachers in public DC and charter schools. And so, next slide, please. So it's very intentional to pay attention to this data. 85% of our schools are not the Czechs or the E.L. Haynes that have numerous L's, like as illustrated in the Czech data. Most of our schools, and again, both the charter and public school world, are serving fewer than 5% L's in their building. So as we go through the presentation, if we could think collectively as to what it looks like if you work in a school like Ward 1, where we have a Czech, or a Ward 7 or 8, where Mr. Ravitz is on the phone and he serves a handful of L's, and in some ways by himself. So next slide, please. In order to serve our L's and our students, we live by the DCPS pillars that are also words and ways pillars in terms of the Aussie vision for literacy. And as we go through the presentation, if you'll just pay attention or be reminded of or notice we're not necessarily saying the words equity or saying the words joy other than in this slide, but that throughout the presentation that Dr. Emilius presents in terms of the work that's being done at Czech, you will see where teachers are scheduled to discuss data. There's time in the day where teachers work together in honor of student learning. So again, please notice the DCPS pillars and the Aussie literacy vision throughout this presentation. And again, if we're going to speak about seminal literacy practices, this morning was so fruitful, and some of the other guests who were honored to speak about literacy, there are about a dozen or 10 common literacy practices. These are taken right from the Aussie's Comprehensive Literacy Plan. But again, there's no need to read these words to our expert colleagues yourself. But again, just notice when we are talking about Dr. Emilius's class, we are talking about a class that has opportunity, planning, rigor, home involvement, and checks for understanding. And again, this is in theme with the seminal literacy practice for L's regardless of program. And then, of course, also in the Aussie vision, and just much of the seminal literature about dual language or L's, we speak to partnerships within the building, content teachers working with ESL teachers. Again, Dr. Emilius is an ELA teacher. I work for LAD. We work together. So there's a lot of interconnection partnership with the community, with the family, within the building of education, and then other outside partners. Coach Villapano is on my speed dial, as is Anika Harris. So again, there's a lot of communication in honor of the students. Valuing the language. You will again notice in the presentation where we have Spanish to help our students with language acquisition. There's when we talk about access to grade level content, and again, you'll see this in the presentation, as we value both Aussie and the DCPS ways, we're not only providing the rigorous grade level content, but we're really providing achievement opportunities to shine and excel and succeed. There's not coddling or small tables with students who are struggling. This is a holistic environment of joy for the students, where there's a lot of learning going on regardless of where you stand in terms of your English language acquisition. And then, of course, most importantly, as brought up so many times today in the plenary and then in the other sessions that I had the honor of joining, that idea of looking exactly where the students are, teachers looking at data to inform their construction and individualized instruction. So when we talk about Czech, again, in honoring the work of Dr. Emilius, I want to honor the work of Czech. I want to name that this is a very collaborative effort where the administration has intentionally scheduled time for teachers to dive into data. This is a school where the librarian, the administration, Mr. Tobias is the tech gentleman. We're all in the work together in honor of the kids. And so when we look at schools where sometimes it seems like the wheel is greased, there's a lot of intention in terms of sharing resources, sharing lesson plans, sharing knowledge with each other. And again, having scheduling within the schedule, that time for teachers to work together, and that time when you are going to move to a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention for it to be scheduled. I know that some of you join me in thinking that you've heard that in other sessions today. We're very much speaking the same language. I'm going to pass the presentation and the real meat and juice to my colleague and friend, Dr. Emilius, but I also want to tell everyone that not only is Dr. Emilius a fabulous teacher and a fabulous colleague, but today is her birthday. So, yes. So
it is. And I get
so you
to spend my
probably
birthday
thought I
with...
forgot. I didn't forget. I want everyone to know. That's why I didn't say happy birthday to you earlier.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And I get to spend my birthday with like-minded educators, which makes my heart really happy. So thank you so much.
Hey, Noelle. Oh, sorry. This is Megan. I just wanted to let you know that we are seeing the presenter mode of
You've seen the presenter mode this whole time?
Not the whole time. It switched about 2 slides back. So.
Oh, weird. Hold on. I don't know.
And also happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. Let me try this again. Give me 1 second. There we go. Is that better?
There we go. Yes, great. There we go.
All right, so I just want to, before we get started, review a couple key terms, because throughout my educational experience as a teacher, these 3 terms have been used interchangeably, but they're actually very different. And so an accommodation is a legally mandated instructional requirement that helps a student meet the objective. So we hear this a lot with IEPs. We are legally mandated to do this. A modification, however, is a change in the actual content or the actual standard that the student is working towards. What we're going to be doing today is learning how to scaffold. And a scaffold is a temporary support that we provide a student in order to help them meet the objective. Temporary is underlined because it is really important that we understand these are not long-term. In order for our students to continue their language acquisition process, we need to make sure that we maintain that these scaffolds are temporary. We're pulling them away when they're not needed anymore. So in the chat box or on the agenda page, you received a link to the resource guide. And if you could go ahead and click on the grade level assignment link, it's listed as number 1 on that resource guide. Again, it's in the chat box if you need it. And take a couple seconds to familiarize yourself with what this assignment is. So this assignment was created for my 10th grade English class. I am DCPS. My students, regardless of language ability, all take the PARCC exam. I am tied to IVF, like many of you have been. IVA, oh my God. I am tied to IVA. Oh yeah, not IVF. And so this assignment was created to mirror the PARCC research simulation task. So for those of you that teach 10th grade or 9th grade, you've seen the PARCC RST, this should look familiar. So take your second or 2, look at the reading, but we're going to be focusing on those first and second read questions. So look through those for a moment. Okay, so when creating scaffolds for your classroom, there is a 4-step process that I go through, because in my 10th grade classroom, I'm teaching everybody the Common Core standards for 10th grade, and I have pre-K level readers all the way through to college level readers. And as we heard in the keynote speakers this morning, as we heard in many of our breakout sessions, we need to create equitable, accessible curriculum that everybody is learning grade level content. And so the first step in creating these scaffolds and getting content everyone can access is to get your grade level assignment. So whether you are in DCPS and you pull it off of Canvas, or you use another program, or you make your own like you see before you. Whatever you have, you need your grade level assignment in front of you in order to work backwards to create the scaffolds for your L's. So after you get your grade level assignment in front of you, step 2 is to focus on what your students need to walk away knowing. So I call this a no-show chart. However, it may look different in different contexts. So if you're not familiar with this version of a no-show chart, that's okay. But the way that I do it is that I have my objective. Students will be able to identify a speaker's argument in a speech. This is what all my students are working towards. What I specifically need them to know is the speaker's argument in the speech. And so underneath that, you'll see in italics, Andrew Jackson supported the removal of Native Americans because it benefited white settlers. 100% of my students need to walk out of the door after this lesson with that exact kernel. So how am I going to get my students to show me they learned this? The students are going to complete close read questions. And you'll see that there are 3 bullet points underneath the show. Some close read questions will have, some close reads will have blanks, some close reads will have question stems, and some close reads will have multiple choice. And this multiple show is what we're going to look at today. Because for every one no that you have in your no column, you have to have multiple ways for students to be able to show it. If you are creating accessible curriculum for those pre-K readers all the way through the college readers, they're going to have to show you in different ways. And that's what this chart really lays out there for you. So I have my grade level assignment. I've created this no-show chart. What do they need to know? And what are they going to show me? So if you could go back to the resource for a moment and open up Scaffolded Assignment Example 1. And just take a minute to peruse that. And you can unmute yourself or put it in, I'm not sure if we can unmute ourselves, so I said put it in the chat box. What do you notice about this specific assignment? How does it compare to the grade level assignment? And who might receive this kind of scaffolded assignment? So you can just add to the chat box or unmute yourselves. Initial thoughts about what this scaffolded assignment is in comparison to the grade level.
So Dr. Milius, in the chat, we have a couple of comments. Level 2 to 3 readers was a comment. And I know some of you in the audience. Mr. Ravitz, can you please participate?
So this is the problem with coming to Dr. Ugel's session.
Yes.
She's gonna call you out.
There's another Mr. Jones just added, you added a summary plus the summary in Spanish.
I'm trying to find everything, but I'm willing to participate as soon as I can get it together.
Okay, that's great. And Ms. Lewis just said, I saw the content objective. What is the language objective?
So the language objective for this would be to, it would vary. The language objective varies based on the levels of learners that we have in the room. And so the language objective would be based on the shows. But that is that could be a whole different, writing objectives is a whole different PD. So I'll come back to that. So for those of you that noticed the summaries, for those of you that said this would be for a level 2 student, you are absolutely right. So step 1 was to get that grade level content. Step 2 is to figure out your no-show chart. What do your students need to know? And step 3 is to scaffold for your level 1-2 students. So I'm not sure who had said it, but someone said that they noticed that there was a summary in English on the top of the reading, as well as the student's native language underneath that. So one of the ways that you can scaffold for your level 1s and 2s is by creating a summary in simplified English, just a couple sentences, and then putting that same exact summary in their native language. So using their native language as a tool, but not allowing them to just see everything in their native language, because they still need the exposure to the English language. And so you'll notice that I am actually, you might not notice, I am English monolingual. And so I have a lot of Spanish speakers, but I've also had students who speak Amharic, French, Portuguese, Lao, Mandarin, lots of different languages. And so when I'm creating these resumes, I'm someone that has to rely on Google Translate, and I like to emphasize that that's okay. Does it get it right 100% of the time? No. But am I showing the student that I see them and I value their language and I'm trying to help them? Yes. And so that's one way, because you'll notice everyone's still got the same text. I'm not changing Andrew Jackson's speech to Congress just because these are level 1, 2 English learners, levels 1 and 2. They have to read the same text as all my other students. So another way that I scaffold for level 1s and 2s is by doing footnotes, and you'll see the footnote on the bottom. Andrew Jackson uses the term Indian. However, I don't want my English learners going out into the world after school and referring to that population of people as Indians. It's not an appropriate word to use in 2022. And so I made a footnote on the bottom to let them know that in their writing and in our close read, we're referring to this population as Native American. I also use footnotes because as a teacher who has the PARCC exam, but also at an AP for all school, at a school that gives the SATs, ACTs, footnotes are everywhere, and they usually provide a definition or essential context and background. So I really need my ELs to know how to use the footnote appropriately. In my questions on this scaffold, you'll notice that the language has been simplified. There is no direct textual evidence in the questions. You'll also notice that most of the questions are multiple choice. So I'm giving students options so that they can decipher the answer. They're not necessarily finding the answer. I use a lot of images per the WIDA can-do descriptors. Level 1s and 2s can match images. So when talking about emotions, and before every question, I also give them the paragraph number. Now this speech, you'll notice, only has 5 paragraphs. But 5 paragraphs is still a large amount to take in, especially from a speech written in 1839. So giving them the direct paragraph numbers is an automatic way to chunk the text. Now they know they only have to go to that specific part of the text. So I want to take a moment and compare these grade level questions to the scaffolded questions. This way we can really see how did we go from step 1 with the grade level question to step 3, this scaffolded level 1 and 2, or this level 1 and 2 scaffolded assignment. So I pulled 2 specific questions here from the grade level assignment. The first one says in paragraph 2, who will, quote, the speedy removal, end quote, benefit? And you'll notice that in simplifying the language and providing multiple choice, I've given the paragraph number, and then I ask who will benefit from the removal of the Native Americans. I'm not using the verbiage of Andrew Jackson in that specific question, and I'm giving very simple multiple choice. It's either one or the other. And the reason why there's only 2 multiple choice there is because I do not want to confuse my level 1s and 2s with language about a lot of different populations. I want them to know there's only 2 populations we're talking about in this speech. And as I'm walking around the room, this is a question that is a quick look at me, either they get it or they need a big intervention. In terms of what are the benefits that Jackson lists in paragraph, well, actually, let me step down here. When you're making your scaffolded question, so you have your grade level question, and now we have to make this scaffolded level 1 and 2. How do I do this? There are 4 questions you can ask yourself for each grade level question that will help you figure out, how can I reword this or configure this to make it accessible for my level 1s and 2s? So you ask yourself, what do you want your grade level student walking away knowing from that specific question? Once you have that answer in your head, ask yourself, is there a step like background or clarification that your EL student may need to access the grade level question? So for these questions on the screen, there is no background or clarification, because I've already clarified in my footnote previously that Indian refers to Native American. So this is the big one in terms of simplifying language, making something accessible. And how can you simplify the language of a specific question? Well, you could look to see if there are cognates. The vast majority of ELs in DCPS speak Spanish as their native language. And so simplifying and finding cognates can be very useful for scaffolds for Spanish-speaking students. And so one of the cognates that I found when creating this assignment was the cognate for benefit. I didn't have to change that one because benefit is a cognate in Spanish. It is a very similar word. You could ask yourself, are there tier 1 vocabulary words that students may see frequently or in different contexts? And so you'll notice that circle all the correct answers. This concept of circle, this is something they see across every class they go in. They're always giving directions to circle different things, to circle the correct answers. So this is something I want to reinforce. They are familiar with this word. They are familiar with the concept. Let's embrace that and bring it out in the scaffold. And lastly, you can ask yourself if there are vocabulary words from the text or that you've been using throughout the unit that can be used in the question. So when I say that, I'm talking about the answer here. How will they benefit? The word, if my student goes back to paragraph 2, the words population growth, the words wealth, and the word power are all listed in paragraph 2 as benefits. Better education and more food are never mentioned in paragraph 2. And so that's how I came up with these answer choices. I was using the same vocabulary words there. Lastly, with the formatting, you have to think about what will best help your student get to the answer. So I mentioned before that this top question has 2 multiple choice answers, because that is a quick way for them to know this is the one population that benefited here. But on the bottom, you'll notice that there are multiple answers and they are not multiple choice. And the reason for that is because my grade level question asks my students, what are the benefits with an S? If my grade level students are going to answer this and walk away knowing that there were multiple benefits, then I need to create a question that allows my level 1s and 2s to walk away knowing that there were multiple benefits. If I simply did multiple choice for this type of question, they would not be getting the same level of education that my grade level students are getting. They need to know that there's more than one. So I'm going to stop there for a minute because I'm like throwing all of this at you and I want to take any questions. Do we have any questions?
We have good comments where a couple of colleagues have pointed out where this topic would not necessarily be brand new to some students, assuming that they weren't newcomers. A colleague said that it was in a 7th grade Canvas. Another colleague said 5th grade, although that might have been me making a mistake and it's actually 7th grade. But at any rate, and I don't see any questions as much as some comments and wondering. I don't know if anyone wanted to take themselves off of chat. We don't mind mind a 2 or 3 minute clarification before we move on?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you at any given time provide a text in Spanish? Like I have a totally newcomer student. I can't communicate. And then one of my L teachers just left. So we ordered text in Spanish, and it's very difficult to how can I say? It's very difficult, like for me to even try to get her engaged. And I do rely heavily on one of my other students who's been great at translating for me. Like, how do you manage that? Because it's very difficult for me.
It's very difficult. It's difficult enough that you and I are going to have an hour conversation later. Let me just make sure that I know who you are, and I'm going to help you as much as possible. Again, are you in Word 1 or Word 7? Do you have a team, or are you by yourself? So let me help you with that. My pleasure, but it would take too much time with the presentation, but we're going to get back to that excellent question. Tell me your name right now so I can write it down.
My name is Danielle Jones. I'm at E.L. Haynes. I don't know what.
Oh, you wrote great comments in the chat. Fabulous. Okay, and we share some students, Miss Jones. So I'll get back to you. Okay, go on, Dr. Emilius.
And I want to highlight, thank you so much for your vulnerability in admitting that, Ms. Jones, because I think I know that you are not alone, but you've taken the steps to come here and not only listen, but you're asking questions too and asking for help. And like, man, you gave my heart wings, because so many people just sit back and they're afraid to ask. And we have so many students like your little one who need help. So thank you so much. Are there any other questions in the chat box before I go forward?
The only thing I'm going to ask is if other colleagues, which already happened, have other ideas for Miss Jones, if they would please continue to put those in the chat. Thank you so much.
I have a quick question. This is Lucia. How are you, Dr. Emilius? Can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you. Hi.
So my question is, you said you talked about that question, what are the benefits in plural, Jackson lists in, and you said that in this question, you want the students to just list the benefits, if I understood that correctly? Now, yes. So what kind of support do you give students that can perhaps your level 1 students, I asked that question, but I guess it got missed. Can your level 1 students answer open-ended questions?
So my level 1 students are only answering the questions that are on the right-hand side of the screen. My grade level questions are on the left-hand side of the screen.
So that would not be a question that a newcomer, for example, will answer.
I'm sorry?
So if maybe I'm misunderstanding. So that question that I just mentioned, what are the benefits, that's not a question that all the students will answer.
All of the students are going to walk away knowing the benefits. My grade level students are being asked, what are the benefits? And they have an open-ended question that they have to list the benefits. And my level 1 and 2 Ls are asked, how will they benefit? And they have a list of answers that they are going to circle the correct answers.
Okay, I got it. So they have to circle instead of listing. Got it.
Yes. Yeah. Wait, can we see my screen? I just want to make sure we can see the screen.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna move forward for a second. Well, so if you go back to the resource that we gave you, this is the last time, we promise. There's one more scaffolded assignment that I'd like you to open, and it's called Scaffolded Assignment Example 2. And this time, I also want you to look at this, peruse this. What do you notice? How does this compare to a grade level assignment? And who would receive this type of scaffolded assignment? So you can unmute yourself or put your thoughts in the chat box. Ms. Lewis, I see your hand is up.
I guess I have a question. about close
You know what I'm going to do? Can we wait? Can we do the questions at the end since it's about
Yeah,
close?
sure.
Okay,
Sure.
thanks so
That's
much.
fine. No problem.
Okay, so what do you notice about this scaffolded assignment? It's a little different than what we've seen so far. How does it compare to the grade level assignment? And who would you give this to? Okay, so Nikki, are there, I'm sorry, Dr. Ugel, is there anything in the chat box? We can't see it.
No, there's nothing in the chat box quite yet.
Okay.
Someone says level 2s and 3s.
Yeah, so if we look at this scaffold, you'll notice that it's a little different than the one we just did. It's a step above, but it's not quite the same as the grade level assignment. So this is a type of scaffold you would have for level 3, 4 Ls. So step 1 was getting your grade level assignment. Step 2 was the objective and the no-show chart. Step 3 is to make your scaffold for your level 1 and 2 ELs. And step 4, the final step, is to make a scaffold for your level 3 and 4 ELs. Because if we gave, well, we'll go into that. How do you make a close read for level 3, 4s? How do we make Andrew Jackson's speech to Congress accessible for this group of students? So what I want to notice and point out is that the summary is still on the top of the page in English. It is the same simplified English summary that my level 1s and 2s received. However, this time I've taken away the scaffold of the use of the native language. So in the very beginning, I said scaffolds are temporary and you want to keep removing to push those students in their language acquisition process. By the time a language learner is at a level 3 or 4, they should not be relying so heavily on their native language, which is why I'm still giving them a summary in their in simplified English, but I do not provide it in their native language. You'll notice again, I'm still using footnotes here at the bottom to get my students used to that idea. I'm still using simplified vocabulary in the questions, and I'm still using paragraph numbers. However, you'll notice that the difference is all of this is blank. I've taken away the multiple choice. And that is why, that's why doing the, my mouse is gone. That's why doing a scaffold for level 3 and 4 comes after doing the scaffold for a level 1 and 2. Because one way to maintain the footnotes, the simplified language, the direct paragraph numbers, is to use the same questions from the level 1 and 2 scaffold, but to make all the questions open-ended so that you mirror the grade level assignment. So a level 3, 4 falls in the middle here, and it is taken from both of the different levels of assignments. You've used your simplified language from your level 1 and 2 scaffold, but you're taking away that multiple choice scaffold and leaving it open-ended, just like your grade level assignment. And so are there any questions about this before we look at all 3 of these next to each other? Okay, so let's look at all 3 then. We showed you the grade level assignment, and 2 of those questions are on your screen, on the left-hand side of your screen. We've showed you the scaffold for level 3s and 4s, and we've showed you a scaffold for levels 1s and 2s. If you look at the first question from my grade level assignment, it was who will, in paragraph 2, who will, quote, the speedy removal, end quote, benefit. and I've left it blank. My grade level students are going back into the text and they are finding that answer. My level 3s and 4s, they're given the paragraph number and they're given a simplified version of the same exact question. Who will benefit from the removal of Native Americans? And I've left it blank. They are going back into the text and they are finding that answer. And my level 1s and 2s have been given the paragraph number, they've been given simplified English, and they've been given multiple choice, because instead of finding the answer in combing through paragraph 2 to find the answer, they are deciphering the correct answer. Who will benefit from the removal of Native Americans? A, Native Americans, or B, white people? And I want to point out that one of the things that Dr. Ugel and I had talked about when we started doing this is that while this is targeted towards EL students in the classroom, I actually use the EL level 3 and 4 scaffold for native monolingual English students who read significantly below grade level. So these scaffolds are not just for the 1 to 17 EL students you may have in the classroom. They actually work for a large range of abilities in the academic English language. And so some students with IEPs, some students well below grade level, many more students get these scaffolds than just my EL students. So I want to take a second there to pause to see if there's any questions about that.
A quick question I have, sorry, me again. So how would you present this to the students? Would you give them different worksheets or different activities, or you will give them all the questions and have them choose which one they feel comfortable answer?
So I would not let them choose which one they're most comfortable with, because my high schoolers would probably 80% of the time choose one that they would not be very rigorous for them. I give out the resources that you saw. That is exactly what I hand to the students. And it takes a little bit of work in the beginning of the year, but students are very understanding and familiar, a lot more so than society gives our teenagers credit for. The issue of how come they got that one and they got that one does not often come up in my classroom, because they see the same words on everyone's paper, and everyone is, this is one day's assignment, but after this assignment, they're all writing an essay. So everybody's doing the same stuff. It's just different steps to get there. Okay, so
should I wait till after? I had a question too.
Yeah, I just have two more slides.
Okay.
So I just want to review this process. It's 4 steps. You have on the resource guide, the picture there on the left-hand side is what's on your resource guide for you to continue to go back to. Your step 1 is grabbing that grade level assignment. Step 2 is making your no-show chart, looking at the objective. Step 3 is to create a scaffold for your level 1 and 2 ELs. And on your resource page, I've given you the exact ways that you can help modify. Step 3 is to create, step 4 is to create the scaffold for your level 3 and 4 EL students. And so you have the ways that you can scaffold in your resource guide there as well. And so the last thing I want to say before we get to the question and answer here is that scaffolding takes practice, and it is essential that you collaborate with the people around you in order to keep your sanity and your work-life balance manageable. I work on a team of teachers. I am not the only teacher in the building that has an EL student, and if you are a secondary teacher, you are not the only one with an EL student, because your EL student has at least 3 other teachers. And so collaborating, asking questions, coming up with these scaffolds together or these assignments together is essential. But most importantly, like anything else, The more you scaffold assignments, the easier it's going to become. I've been doing this for 13 years. This is a very fast process for me. So I may have run through it really quickly or thrown a lot at you. It becomes muscle memory, the formatting, the way you go about doing it. But what I really want to emphasize is that when you scaffold assignments the way that you've seen today, it also becomes muscle memory for your students. That level and structure and directions, that repetition creates familiarity for your students, which creates confidence in them. When I put a paper down in front of my EL student, I don't need to explain step by step what they have to do because they've seen that type of scaffolding before. So they take their pen, they start writing right away. And that is what creates the movement that for the language acquisition. That's what creates the movement where I start to pull away scaffolds. We're building up that confidence, trying more, practicing more, asking more questions. And lastly, your scaffold may not work. And that's okay. I have had many lessons where I tried to scaffold something one way and it didn't work. And I had to go back the next day and make notes and make adjustments. Because if you're not willing to try it and make a mistake, then you're not helping anyone. Try it, make the mistake, learn from the mistake, try it again. I promise it gets easier if you just keep trying it. Go ahead, Nikki.
So we have about 10 minutes, and what we wanted to do was just take a minute for you to think of a lesson that you're teaching tomorrow, Friday, next week, and think about what you want all of your students to know. And then remember, as Dr. Amelia said, for whatever the know is, you have to have 3-4 shows so that in that tier 1 instruction, everyone is getting a chance to illustrate their knowledge. Also, when there were a couple things that were said, and I was thinking to myself, UDL mindset, that idea that there is going to be different ways that different levels show their learning, but that everyone's getting something. So again, Dr. Amelia said that she said pre-K to college in this class. I also want to, because that's what happens in urban school districts. I also want to point out that Dr. Amelia is an ELA teacher. So in my world, my ESL teachers and I are always trying to partner with the content teacher. So again, this goes a little bit back to the word question. Dr. Amelia said that, well, this student's going to get me and 4 other teachers, whereas some of my friends on the call, Mr. Rabbits, the students get a little bit of Mr. Rabbits, and it's hard for him to partner with all of the teachers in the building, sometimes even 1 or 2. So the first thing that Dr. Amelia said is this is collaboration. This is practice. I've been doing this for 13 years, but it wasn't so easy at the beginning. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to say a couple more things and we'll have more questions because we have 8 or 9 minutes, which actually is a lot of time. So what I do want to indicate is that something interesting with the lesson that she chose. You are the ones that said, hey, I've seen this in other grades, which is amazing. Did you also notice that it actually was ELA and social studies, and some might even say science? So the beauty of this work is that in addition to getting practice with words, multisyllabic words, concepts, these concepts often fit into buckets of different content. We want to invite you to email Dr. Amelius, maybe tomorrow since today's her birthday, and she has other resources that will illustrate these type of different passages with a couple of different worksheets. For those students who are working at about grade level, we still want them to have rigor, be pushed, and then the different scaffolds based on whether you're level 1, 2, or 3, 4. There's a trick here. When you do the scaffold for level 1, 2, it's very easy to turn it into the scaffold 3, 4. So you're not making as many scaffolds as it seems if you get the practice. But again, we invite you, we want to collaborate, partner, share resources. Again, these are all of the words we've heard throughout the day. And if you'd like a couple more examples from other content areas, we would be delighted, open to collaborate and share with you. At this point, in addition, I'm going to definitely get in touch with Ms. Jones about some other newcomers, etc. But based on this topic today, Dr. Amelia's presentation, this type of making comprehension accessible to all, may we answer your questions?
Go ahead, Ms. Lewis.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say that you're obviously a master teacher and your differentiation is out of this world, and you're giving, there's so much rigor in there, but yet the support is there. You've got both of the things necessary for ELS, which is high rigor, high expectations, but also high support. So I just want to preface that with that. So thank you. Great job. So my question is more, I guess, about close reading. From what I saw, I guess my question is that day one?
I think I saw your question in the chat box.
Yeah, is that day one for you, or do you do vocabulary and background building before? Because
that's a great question. No, it's a great question. So there are a couple layers to this. One, this is part of a larger unit, and this speech is the first day. So what they would have done for the do now, or just prior to this, would have been a gallery walk, and we would have had a conversation about the images that portray Trail of Tears, but also like money, give us money for your land or whatever. And then in my context, this is called a close read. The initial read, I think what we call in my context, the initial read is just, we read it together as a class, because in my classroom, the first, whatever we're reading, it's always together.
Okay.
I don't necessarily have the ability to be able to do independent reading and really get an understanding that they understand that independent reading. And so I will read it out loud, and they will write down, it's 3 questions. I forget, we do a 3, 2, 1 and have a conversation about that. And then they dive in and do a first read and a second read. But I know what you mean, that a cold read is often like, here, read this on your own, annotate, like, you know, you do you, and then we'll figure it out. But it's just not my context.
Well, yeah. And the reason I asked that is just that, like, that's my understanding of close read. But I think for ELS, we have to give them close read, especially reading multiple times, but we do have to modify in terms of like building their background and the vocabulary in terms of comprehensible input. So thank you. So this would be like would that be day 1 then?
This would not, oh no, I'm sorry. This would not be day 1. We would have deconstructed the prompt. We would have done an initial read or peruse of all the text. This is a couple days into the unit. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? I also want to indicate, because I have a handful of middle school colleagues on the call. So of course, CHEC serves students in grades 6 through 12. And under the leadership of Maria Takeva, this is the model at CHEC. So this is, if anyone had a question, you know, can I do this in middle school or can I do this in the younger grades? The answer is absolutely. And CHEC does it with fidelity. We've emphasized the teamwork and the practice. So seems a little new, but it is a way, as Ms. Lewis pointed out, to keep that rigor and still give access to all. So we're going to be quiet for a couple of minutes, hoping that there's a question or two. And then we really invite you to be in touch with us in any capacity for more information, more questions, and collaboration. Always, we are interested in collaborating with our charter school partners as well as our DCPS colleagues.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Tracy. I'm a 5th grade ELA teacher here in DC. I'm new to the district, but not new to teaching. And the scaffolding, this was great. First of all, I want to commend the hostess, the host for this wonderful content and just amazing workshop in literacy. And scaffolding is something that I struggled with, but listening to you, it just opened my eyes to how to implement it. And I just really love the way that y'all gave a demonstration on how to implement scaffolding.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. Also, welcome to DC. And yay for 5th grade. They're scary to me, but yay. I do want to point out, this was really humanities heavy. And I've talked to math and science teachers in my building about things that they do. And when we talked about the summarizing in English and their native language, I have a math teacher peer and a science teacher who do that for their lectures. So the student will just receive a piece of paper saying, this is what we're talking about, and a quick, simplified English for the lecture of the day. So that's another way for my STEM classes. But I see Megan, so I'll stop talking.
Thank you.
I don't want to cut it. If there are any final questions or comments, I don't want to cut it off, but it is 4:30, and I know
thank you.
I respect everyone's time. It's so funny. We were just, Sean and I were both just talking before the session, and we both started as 5th grade teachers. So it's great to have 5th grade teachers on the call. And thank you all so much for your presentation. And thank you, Dr. Emilius and Dr. Ugel. This has been a fantastic conversation. And oh, somebody's trying to join us right now. I am supposed to be sharing my screen to give you some final reminders about Whova and what you can do after today's session. So you are able to still utilize the Whova platform for a lot of the questions and networking. It seemed like a couple of connections were happening throughout the session today, some follow-up questions, some opportunities for more engagement. Please feel free to use the community board on Whova, and you can access it through the platform. You can add a topic, you can add a group. I think a couple of users have actually created some events. So I hope that that's a great way for everybody to stay in touch. And thank you all so much. I think you've received a message via Whova to complete a survey. And that would be very helpful for us in terms of our planning for any future convenings and to know what was successful today. So thank you again. And I will leave this up, but if there are other questions, I'll keep the room open for as long as we need to answer any questions or comments. Thank you all for joining. You're muted, Nikki.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much for honoring our presentation. And we're gonna stay on for a minute if anyone had any other questions, but we really welcome you to email. We're very good about getting back and sharing resources and answering questions. And if we don't know the answers, we'll look them up and find them. Okay, I'm looking at who the participants are, and it's like, these are, I know
all your friends.
Everyone. Yeah. So you guys, this is what, first of all, thank you guys for coming. Isn't Dr. Emilius amazing? And we have, you guys, I'm singing happy birthday. Can you guys help me?
Lucia!
Come on. Okay, you guys, take it off of mute, please, please, please. 1, 2, 3. Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Dr. Emilius.
Happy birthday to you.
This is a great time.
Oh my goodness.
I forgot to stop recording. So
I wasn't.
you have us.